All right, yeah, we'll start. Welcome to the Wednesday, November 19th, 2025 electronic meeting of the Ann Arbor Transportation Commission. This meeting's being held electronically, but we intend to conduct it similarly to an in-person meeting. Public comment will be via telephone or Zoom only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 833-548-0282 and enter the meeting ID number 966-2488-9458. Or join via the Zoom link. I believe there's also a passcode if you call in, and that passcode is 253455. Again, or via the Zoom link. This information is also available on the published agenda, which I'm reading off of, in the public notices section of the city website and on the broadcast on CTN channel 16. So Ariana, if you could please call roll.
Sure thing. I will now call roll. Please say here and from where you are dialing in when your name is called. Councilmember Ackman.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Here, Superior Township.
Commissioner Conway.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Dunlap. There we go.
Present in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Commissioner Flewelling.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Hatamaki.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Hook.
Here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Keeler.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Lee.
Here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Zecker.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Hutchinson.
Here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Margolis. Commissioner McCready.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Reed.
Here, Pittsfield Township.
Commissioner Stupka. Looks like we have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. There are two items tonight on the consent agenda: approval of the agenda and approval of the minutes from the October meeting. Are there any proposed modifications to the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Thank you. Moved by Eric, seconded by Pete. All those in favor, please say yes or raise your hand. All those opposed, please say no or raise your hand. The consent agenda is approved. All right, next up is the public comment section of the meeting. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes. Again, please call, if you want to dial in, call 833-548-0282. Enter a meeting ID 966-2488-9458. Or connect via Zoom as described on the agenda. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of your phone number or your Zoom ID. In order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone or select the raise hand button in Zoom. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any background sound so we can hear you clearly. And also please state your name. Ariana, do we have anyone who wishes to speak?
I'm not showing anyone with their hands raised. Again, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand.
Give it a few more seconds here. All right, seeing none. Move on. I'll also point out there are some emailed comments in your packet and on the agenda, so please, as always, take a look at those emails. All right. There are no business items for tonight on the agenda, but we do have some very interesting information and discussion topics. Three of them tonight. Madison Transit Center, signal design, and our annual safety update. So we'll start off with an introduction of the Madison Transit Center by Sven Salwan, if I got that right, from U of M.
That's right.
And yeah, so this is you'll present on this, and if we have any questions, Sven, you can manage if you want people to hold questions till the end or as we go. It's up to you, but presumably you have the ability to share your screen, and the floor is yours.
Actually, Brett, if I may, Sven, before you get started, I just wanted to let everyone know that this was a very collaborative effort that we worked with on. The city staff met with several times, virtually and in person, to really workshop this presentation that you're going to see today about the Madison Transit Center. We worked through a number of issues that we all had concerns on, and so we're really excited that we got to this point and that we have Sven and Mike Rain here today to present this. So thanks, Sven.
I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Well, thanks, Melissa. Yeah, it's been great working with city staff on this project. For those who don't know me, I'm Sven Salwan. I am the assistant campus planner for the university within the Department of Architecture, Engineering, and Construction. Our office oversees or helps to oversee the master planning at U of M. I'm joined by my colleagues. Melissa mentioned Mike Rain, Director of Community Relations, and Tim Brandstetter from HNTV, who have been our consultants on this project. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Honestly, I would be inclined, if folks have questions, we can certainly answer them as we go. I have about 10 slides here of content, so I don't think it should take a real long time to get through them. But yeah, please just let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, commissioners, just use the raise hand thing. It's because it's easier to see that way. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So I am going to jump into the content. So some of you may be familiar with our Campus Plan 2050 process. In the fall of 2023, we held a series of public open houses to roll out some of the concepts that we had generated for our new Campus Plan 2050. I grabbed a screen clip here from one of those displays that we had at the public open houses, and this is showing the area roughly between Hoover Street on the south and Madison and South University to the north. So you'll recognize some of the well-known buildings such as the Michigan Union, West Quad Dormitory, the new L. Bell Field located on South 5th and Madison. And so what this graphic is showing is the potential for future development zones on university property. And so you'll see labeled here the ideas of new undergraduate housing, kind of shown in the yellow blocks. So to the south near Hoover, that first phase of housing, which we're well under construction, that should be opening next fall. Projecting a second phase of that housing between Hill Street and Madison. And the blue lines on the street represent some of our key bus routing, thinking to the future and how we would be adjusting our bus routes with university busing to best serve this area. And in this plan, in the graphic, we had identified a key bus node, a bus station kind of on Madison near Packard and Thompson. And I'm going to highlight that. So this is what we had called out, and we began to think of this as the Madison Transit Center. And so we anticipated a transit center here to serve the high density of students living in the immediate vicinity. So both in on-campus housing and in university housing, and then recognizing all of the private student residences, apartments, houses in the vicinity as well. So we called out this location, the idea of a transit center for our buses and to be used by AAATA buses as well. So here I've circled in red some of the key U of M housing in the immediate vicinities. We have the Munger graduate residence right on the north side of Madison Street, the West Quad and South Quad dormitories, the Law Quadrangle as we get a little bit further east, just east of State Street, where we have residences for law students. And then I previously mentioned that phase 1 and phase 2 of new undergraduate housing. Phase 1 is about 2,300 new beds coming online next fall. Phase 2, we imagine, would be another 2,000 plus new beds. So, and then all of the private residential in the vicinity as well. So we have quite a concentration of students living in this vicinity. And these are students who need to move up through Central Campus, up to the medical center. Many of them will have classes on North Campus as well. So being able to serve these students with transit is incredibly important. And we're very conscious of the community goal to reduce vehicle miles traveled by 50%. We feel very strongly that transit is one of our highest priorities to be able to move the kind of volume of students and faculty and staff through campus and have them not in private vehicles, but taking advantage of our transit system. And especially, for faculty and staff, those who come from out of town, who may be parking in some commuter parking at the perimeter of campus. Again, being able to lean into our robust transit system to move them through campus. So those ideas supported sort of this concept of having a central transit center in the Madison vicinity. And so this location became embedded in our Campus Plan 2050 that we published last fall, and really supported by the amount of density that we're looking at, both existing and in the future as well. So I'm going to zoom us out just a little bit. I'll take a little bit higher level to kind of put this site in a little bit more context. So now we're zoomed out and seeing a little bit more of the central campus area, sort of the familiar diag to the northeast. We've got State Street running north-south through the core here. This is the section where the city is constructing that first transit-only lane, opening up here in the next couple weeks. So again, sort of supporting that transit spine. So 2 years ago, in a meeting with city and U of M staff and leadership, we identified this as a key sort of collaborative project to work on jointly to both support transit, but also it's an opportunity to work closely with city staff to ensure that all modes of travel would have be able to move through this area safe. So not just transit, but non-motorized movements as well, being really critical, especially with the number of students we're talking about living in this vicinity and walking and biking through this area. So as Melissa mentioned, we've held some joint workshops together with city staff to work, to continue working through the design, which I'll share in a second, the concept design for the transit center. And really working together, we had an opportunity to really factor in our shared priorities of safety and mobility. So what I'm going to show overlaid on this is, in these blue lines, is this really key core of bus movement for the university. So this is highlighting on the south, coming up from the athletic campus area along Hoover and up Division, and coming east through this transit center area along Madison and northward on State, or southbound on State, whichever way you want to look at it, taking advantage of that new dedicated bus lane that's being installed on State Street, and also a lot of trips coming down South University and working their way back down south through the Madison Transit Center area as well. So we look at this as the really key critical spine to move people up from the south to Central Campus and points beyond. And then I mentioned the non-motorized movements. If you overlay that on top of this as well, these are just a few of the key critical corridors for pedestrians and bicycles, scooters, recognizing that this is not every movement, but these are some of the ones that really overlap and filter through this area as well, making this project a real opportunity to serve a number of different mobility modes. So this is the overview. This is sort of a high level of the placement of the transit center. And next, I'm going to take us down into sort of a closer look at the transit center area, that zone really around Madison and Packard and Division. Drop us back down into there. So this aerial photo shows existing conditions, the layout of the street grid with an aerial photo background here. So again, we've got Madison running east-west through this section, through this area. Division is that main spine running north-south. To the east, we also have Thompson running north-south, and then Packard, of course, kind of running northwest to southeast. And it creates this six-legged intersection where Packard, Division, and Madison come together. It's a complex intersection. The area that we're talking about, really sort of the heart of the transit center, is this sort of short block of Madison between Packard and Thompson. This is a one-way eastbound short little block today. And this is the location where we focused a lot of the design and where we imagine the transit center operations would take place. So now I'm going to overlay this concept design onto this map. So what you're seeing, sort of the key element, the sort of the big elephant in the room, is the pink shaded or red shaded area in this half block is what we imagine would be serving buses, and this would be a transit only block or half block. So this would be the transit center, and it would have bi-directional travel, east-west. So you could enter from the east with a bus or enter from the west with a bus. We imagine that we would have covered waiting areas on both sides of the street. So for riders headed southbound or westbound, or those headed eastbound and northbound as well. There's significant curbside length here, sufficient to stack multiple buses in here. So not only our own buses, but again, having this available for AAA TA to be able to move through here and use that if they choose to make some sort of cross-system connections. One of the other real big features here that we're showing is, so I think we're all familiar with the Division Street Bikeway. So this in green along the east side of Division, this two-way bikeway exists today. As part of the concept for the transit center is we're suggesting actually extending the bikeway east as well and taking it through sort of adjacent to the transit center recognizing that, there are a good number of bike trips that use the bikeway today. As we continue to open the new residences to the southwest, we imagine those bike trips will certainly increase. So the idea of being able to provide dedicated bike services, bike infrastructure, arriving at the transit center, creating a dedicated bike parking area. And this isn't showing the specific design that we're still working through, but we're committed to this concept of having bike parking where a student could ride their bike up, leave it here for the day, hop on a bus, head to North Campus or other parts of Central Campus, or staff could do that as well. Another feature as we look at this is we looked at the intersection, the 6-leg intersection, and we're proposing enhanced and adjusted crosswalks. So recognizing that this is a corridor along Packard that's been of some safety concern for the city, enhancing and adjusting these crosswalks, including shortening crosswalks across Packard and Madison compared to their lengths today. So providing a shorter crossing distance, enhancing safety further in this area.
Looks like Kate has a question.
Kate.
Real quick.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, not a question, just a kudos. I bike through the other transit center on University every day, and the buses are very conscious of the bikers and the bike lanes, but the fact that this is going to circumvent that conflict point is just fantastic. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for that comment. Yeah, that was a really great opportunity that we recognized pretty early here. We have a little bit of room, and this parking lot to the south is a university parking lot. So we have a little wiggle room here where we could do that and pull the bikes around and not mix them with pedestrians or riders who are standing and waiting, not mix them with bus movement through here as well. Yeah, so this is the general concept here. Are there other questions about this? I have a couple other slides talking about some of the other safety features as well. Looks like Eric.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I was just, are you going to be widening division then? Because I believe it's only northbound currently, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's something that we're studying, talking to the city about as well, city staff as well, is yes, it is only northbound currently in that block. It's two-way when you get south of Hill Street.
Right.
So yes, that is something that we're in discussion with about adding a southbound lane that would allow, sort of thinking back to that bus spine that I was showing earlier, an opportunity as we work through design, opportunity to widen division on sort of the university, that west side of division, where we're the landowner on that side, and there's room if we wanted to widen that right of way. And so we would continue to work with city staff to study that.
Pete?
A couple of observations. One of them is that I'd like to make sure that we pay special attention to how we route bikes onto this new section of bike lane, and make sure that we get the transitions coming from the east and west so that it's convenient to do that. Just as a way to discourage people from going through the transit only lanes and encourage riders to actually use the facility.
To make that transition into the east-west section.
The other thing is I like your idea about people being able to ride their bike there and leave it there for the day. And I'd like to encourage bike parking facilities that support that will cover up bikes and keep them out of elements and keep them out of the rain and stuff. I think we can make that a welcoming place for people to ride their bikes to. So absolutely, yeah, that's a great comment, and that is definitely something we are looking at, covered bike parking. Excellent, thank you.
Got a couple questions.
Yeah.
So it looks like to make that block of Madison two-way, we'd have to get rid of some curb cuts, right, in order to be able to allow westward travel. Right, the curb or the curb bump out, sorry, curb bump outs
The curb, yeah, I think
right there, yeah.
like
Just
there,
on both sides.
right? Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right, so that would be okay, so that would make the crosswalk a little longer, but it would be transit only, and that leads to my other question is like what kind of treatment, or would it be only via signals to prevent non-transit from entering this block? On both sides, I guess, would it just like all be
How to
painted
signify
green,
that,
or-
yeah, how to signify that it's a transit only section.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something we've been looking at, and Tim, maybe you could comment on that as well.
Yeah, so I'm happy to, making sure I navigated the mute button. Brett, I think what we'd be looking at the moment is both signage and paint, and then potentially a change of surface from the asphalt roads to potential concrete base. And so having those three elements to help visualize to drivers, this is not a space for you, this is a transit only lane, is our current thought as we work through those design details.
Okay,
Yeah, it's something as well, Brett, you know, that's a treatment or a transition that's being put in place on State Street right now as part of the State Street project, where, you know, you're starting a transit only lane. So we can look at some of the same strategies there.
and then finally, continuing the bike lane east. Now I understand there's a fraternity or sorority house right there, but like, is there any opportunity to continue that two-way bike, cycle track all the way to State Street where we have a nice, protected bike lane?
I would say the way that we are designing this currently is we are not precluding the ability to continue something east. It's not envisioned as part of this specific project, but it's certainly something, and maybe Melissa or Cynthia it could comment on this part, maybe part of the city's thinking to, a future opportunity to continue that further.
It's certainly something that we've thought about as part of this whole process that we've been in with U of M. So we're not precluding it either, but I know the right of way is pretty tight. So it's something that we would keep on our radar to try to implement if possible. Because it would make a great connection, you're correct.
Pete, another question?
Yeah, I see that on Thompson, we've got a crosswalk that's adjacent to a cycle track crossing. We have a similar situation
There.
on Depot, I think near Wheeler Park. And not everybody knows, not all drivers know what they're supposed to do at a crosswalk, but a lot of them do. But nobody seems to know what to do at the bicycle crossing there. And so some people treat it like a crosswalk, some don't. And I think we need to be careful about this similar configuration here. And we have an example that we can go look at and learn from so that we don't create that same kind of confusion in this area, or that we choose a design that minimizes that confusion is what I'd like to encourage. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, that's excellent to know that we've got that as a precedent to take a look at. Thank you. I might jump forward. I have another couple images. So if we step back to existing conditions, so we had mentioned that the complexity of the existing intersection. So there are a number of turn movements with this existing six-legged intersection. There are actually, as we've counted them, about 20 existing conflict points between where vehicles would be turning or making through movements and where pedestrians or bikes would be traveling. So 20 different conflict points in the intersection today. I'm going to overlay the transit center concept again. So as we think about the transit center, What we're proposing as part of this, and again, working with city staff to work through how this would be executed, is actually removing 5 of those existing turn movements, which wouldn't make sense sort of traveling into the transit center. You don't want private vehicles entering that, or other movements that could be eliminated, further simplifying intersection operations. So here I'm overlaying in red those 5 potential turn movements to be eliminated. And some of these are pretty obvious. You don't want to be traveling from Packard into the transit center, making turns those are movements that you can make today, but with this being a transit only section, you wouldn't have private vehicles doing that. Same thing coming up Division and making sort of that 90-degree turn into Madison. That would be one that would be eliminated as well. But then we also looked at, in discussion with city staff, thinking about eliminating sort of northbound Division and sort of hooking hard to your right to travel southeast down Packard. It's probably not a heavy desire line anyway, but the opportunity to eliminate that movement, again, reduces a few of those conflict points. And we think it further simplifies the intersection operations. And then again, traveling kind of northwest up Packard, that hard left turn onto Madison westbound. Again, you have an opportunity by eliminating that turn movement of eliminating a couple of those other conflict points. And we think overall, these movements being taken out of sort of the intersection operations really further simplifies it and really enhances the safety of pedestrians and bikes and other non-motorized modes traveling through here, and really focusing us on the movements that are really necessary for transit and vehicles, and allowing for a safer experience for peds and non-motorized movements. I see it quite Dharma.
Hi, thanks. I'm very familiar with this area because I work at the U of M Perry building up in the left-hand corner. So I know about all the conflicts, and I also know where people actually cross versus where they're supposed to cross. And clearly you guys have put a lot of thought into this, so I almost hate to even throw it out there, but I'm going to anyway. Is this a good candidate for a roundabout because there are so many intersecting roads, or was that considered, or how might that mesh or not mesh with the transit plans? And yeah, just wondering if that's been considered.
Maybe Tim, from a geometry standpoint, you could comment on that.
I guess I can take the first stab, and if anyone from the city wants to back, follow me, feel free. But we did not exclusively look at a roundabout, but when you look at kind of the right of way and the distances, as well as the grade as you fall from Packard down to Division, it becomes pretty challenging to get that to fit within kind of the wedge of space we have.
Yeah, that's a good point about grade, Tim, is that for those who aren't familiar with the area, Division slopes down significantly as you head south. Madison does the same as you head west from the intersection. So grades are certainly a big factor in the sort of the geometry of this area.
And there's also some consideration about how different schools of thoughts out there in terms of how the bikes can interact with that in the roundabouts versus not.
Other thoughts or questions? This was the final slide, so I'm happy to spend some more time discussing.
And I personally I'm happy to see some consideration to the conflict points, because yeah, I mean, even now without a transit center there in one way, it's there's a lot of conflict that happens. And I think of heading inbound on Packard, people wanting to turn left onto Madison currently. People behind them get frustrated, zoom around, into the crosswalk along the right.
Yeah.
So if it's possible to set expectations and have the right kind of signage and paint to make sure people actually obey the new movement rules, then I think these do have some good potential for sure.
Yeah, this is an intersection I drive through on my way home often, and you do see that exact thing, Brett, where you've got somebody who wants to turn left on Madison, and it can cause chaos behind it and
Or
frustration.
turn left or turn left on outbound Packard, same thing, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
there's a little triangle, little black triangle in there. Is that a new feature or?
Yeah, it's a design feature that we've been exploring. When you think about division, especially with division two-way, if it were to move to two-way, the island feature there is a way to sort of organize, so both set the edge sort of with the bike lanes that exist along Packard headed southeast, but also to channelize vehicles headed northbound as well from division to sort of align you. And Tim, please jump in if I'm not stating this as eloquently as a traffic engineer. But yeah, to really align the vehicle movement headed northbound on division.
Okay. But to be clear, transit would still be allowed to turn right from Division onto Madison towards the center, the transit center, right?
Yep,
So,
that's exactly right.
and have
That would
physical
be the,
impediments. Okay.
yeah, that would be the one movement into Madison. Yes, that would be allowed. Is you would have a bus able to make this movement, sort of this arrow here, headed into the transit center, and you would have buses would be able to exit the transit center, probably in a specific phase, to allow that movement to happen as well, to sort of separate that.
And you mentioned AAATA may make use of this as well. And if so, are there buses coming from other directions on their routes, like outbound on Packard?
I think is Matt on the call? Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Matt.
And so I can try to answer some of the question, but I think Sven may be speaking with my colleagues more frequently than with me, so he may know. I don't believe we have any buses on Packard on this block right now.
I think that's right. In speaking with your team, Matt. Yeah. I know
We
you've
do
got
have,
buses on the Thompson side.
we have Route 5 on Thompson, and it's going north-south on Thompson from downtown to Packard. I don't know that it so much would pull into this transit center. But Sven, have you had any discussions with Forrest and Company about bus stops near the crosswalk on Thompson to facilitate transfers there?
Just a little bit, Matt. We have talked to Forrest, and that's something we're still. I know our colleague Steve Dolan, the head of our transportation group, has been talking about with Forrest as well. So,
And Sven, if I can interject, because I'm not sure if you had joined us for that call with Steve and Forrest, but Matt, you're spot on. Had that conversation with your colleagues. They at the moment didn't necessarily see them reconfiguring Route 5 to pull into this center, but they were excited about the adjacency opportunities, of that connection point between the two systems.
Yeah, that jives with just my, my general understanding of this project. So it looks like a great facility for the U of M bus system. We might occasionally use it. There are detours and construction routing we have to accommodate, but we only have one route on Thompson that's immediately adjacent, and it would probably continue to just pass by. We might be able to do some better bus stops nearby to facilitate transfers, but that's probably all we would be immediately looking for. And it sounds like those discussions have already happened. So thank you.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Matt, in a detour situation, you would always have access to this block to bypass traffic where regular private vehicle traffic would not have access to.
Eric?
Eric, yeah.
Yeah, this is more of a question, I think, for Melissa, but I seem to recall that there were some preliminary discussions previously about converting division north of here to two-way. I wasn't sure how this would affect that and if that was still something that we were looking at for the future, possibly converting division to both north-south, north of here, what this means for that.
My understanding is in the downtown area circulation plan, there's a two-waying of Division and Fifth. It has been proposed. So this again wouldn't preclude that from necessarily moving forward if that was something that gained some support or we thought that it was time to implement it, or so it doesn't preclude it.
And Sven, you said the new dorm down at Hoover is opening in the fall. What's the timeline on this project?
The Madison project, we're still in design. We haven't submitted to the city yet. One of the keys to this transit center is actually having it open when we can get buses to it, essentially. So that would determine a little bit when we're actually able to open it, is when we're able to send buses northbound, perhaps send buses southbound on Division to access it. So I think we're still working through the schedule, sort of the optimal schedule for it, but it's something that we're ready to move on when we're confident, I think, that we could access the center with buses.
Lauren.
Yeah, I guess as a follow-up on the timing, perhaps this is for Melissa and for transportation staff with the city. Later on our agenda, one of the things we're going to go over is some of the overall transportation updates, and one of those is the Packard improvements from Maine to state. And so I was just curious how that project is factoring into this Madison Transit Center planning.
That I'm not able to answer. Cynthia, are you available to address that? Maybe. Or Nick, do you have any information on that one?
Well, yeah, I can say that we've been having regular coordination meetings between the Packard project and the Madison Transit Center project. I mean, we're looking at seeing what aspects of this can or should be implemented either as part of or in conjunction with the Packard project. Packard project will be going next year, so they're going ahead of the Madison Transit Center. So there is a lot of coordination going on there between U of M staff, between our consultant that's working on that, and the city. If that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Any other questions? Is that the end of your presentation?
That is, yes.
All right, right on time. Well, this is a very exciting thing. I don't, none of us really knew anything about this, none of the commissioners. So this is a ton of information that's very exciting, and it's nice to see all the work that you all have collaborated on to put together. So really appreciate coming to us and showing us this.
Absolutely.
Hey, Brett, this is Mike Rain. I work in government relations. Dharma would be disappointed if I didn't say anything at all during this meeting, but I just want to really emphasize the collaboration, but especially with Cynthia and Nick. And then as soon as Melissa came on board, we've been talking to them a long time, and then Melissa joined the staff, and jumped right in. So we could not have done that without Cynthia and Nick and Melissa. So we really appreciate the collaboration and want to thank them for that in front of the commission. So, but thanks for your time tonight as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, moving on then. Next topic is the traffic signal design topic. And we have from AECom, a familiar face to many of us, Luke Liu. Welcome back, Luke, even if it's only for the duration of this presentation, but it's great to see you again. And yeah, you know how to share your screen. The floor is yours. You know what to do.
Thank you very much for having the opportunity to coming back and talking to the commission again. So this presentation, assuming the screen is showing up, on traffic signal design and modernization, primarily to focus on the considerations in the process than too much technical detail involved in coming up with the design. So overall, this presentation slide is a little bit bigger, about 20 slides, but there are some transition pages in there. So I'll try to focus on the interest of the commission. So in general, it's going to go through introduction, the policy and the programming settings for design and modernization. Then we'll talk about different types of signals. Go over the design steps, just major steps, then talk about the considerations in this process. And we'll walk through some of the significant impacts as a result of modernizing traffic signals. And lastly, we'll talk about data communications and the operations of the city's signal shop, special event operations as well as, and also we'll touch on some research aspect as related to traffic signals. From a very high level, on the left of this slide, we have a map. It's slightly outdated. I know where there should be a signal, but it's not. That's where my hand is. But in general, this map is still correct. Overall, we're talking about around 162 traffic signals within the city boundary. We use the word around or approximate because there are projects adding signals, there are projects to remove some signals, so that number fluctuates in that ballpark. So within all the signals inside the city boundary, the jurisdiction is different. Roughly 2/3 of this total number of signals are owned by the city of Ann Arbor, and roughly 1/3 is owned by MDOT. But also for the MDOT owned signals, they're being operated and maintained by the city. There are also a few signals owned by the University of Michigan. Those are mainly around the university medical campus, starting from Cancer Center Drive signal going around East Medical Center Drive to East Hospital. Some of the projects would involve removal. The most recent ones are signals on Washington Street, Washington First, and Washington and Ashley. There are, I think, the signal at Liberty and Thompson is also in the process of being removed or decommissioned. Some other projects would add traffic signals. The most recent one would be the pedestrian signal on North University Avenue at Transit Center. There is also a traffic signal that's outside of city boundary. It's at South Church and Oak Valley. That signal is on the other side of the South Church Bridge over I-94. That signal is owned and maintained by Washtenaw County Road Commission, but the timing plan is being operated by the city of Ann Arbor to coordinate with the signal on the other side of the bridge at Maple and South Church. In this slide, we're talking about a general life cycle of traffic signal related work. So there are two columns on here. The one on the left column is more talking about the TSMO, the Transportation System Management and Operations life cycle. It applies to traffic signals, it applies to ITS or Intelligent Transportation System applications. And on the right column is putting some more detailed actions corresponding to each step of the TSMO life cycle. So for the planning stage, this is where capital projects are being planned. The city recently went through another cycle to update the city's CIP. So this is what the planning activity would look like. And programming corresponds to resource allocation and the funding application to support traffic signal projects. Design and implementation, that's the main topic of the discussion tonight. And this is about delivering traffic signal projects. For operations, this mainly talks about the city's signal shop and traffic operations center event operations. And the last step of the life cycle is monitoring and improvement before the cycle would restart. This is where agencies would hear from customers regarding requests and seek opportunities to do either full upgrades or partial upgrades as part of the life cycle. Then we'll talk about policy programming and triggers that would kick off a traffic signal project. For policy and the programming, the city is moving together toward Vision Zero Transportation Plan. There are many strategies among the 22 total strategies in the master plan. There are strategies on investment and strategies to talk about driver behavior. There are also strategies involving adding additional bicycle routes to provide the all ages and abilities bicycle network, and intersections focus on intersection safety for cyclists. There are also strategies talking about transit services to provide better reliability for transit service. And then toward the end of the collection of 22 strategies, the last two are talking about adaptive traffic signal control technology and connected vehicle technology. For previous Transportation Commission meetings, there was a discussion in early 24 to talk about pedestrian service at signalized intersections. That's just a more focused topic. And for things around that time, each commission meetings, there has been update about modifying flashing yellow arrow, which represent a permissive portion of the signal cycle, where a left turning vehicle may be in conflict with concurrent pedestrian movement. And for the city of Ann Arbor, the city has been moving away from having that potential conflict by canceling the flashing yellow indication during pedestrian service. Then there is the Michigan Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Device Manual. Sorry for using two manuals there. And this manual is going through its most recent update this moment. It's expected sometime next year, a new version of the MMU TCD will be published. And in the MMU TCD, this is a great opportunity to, I think, relatively speaking, put traffic signal in comparison to other traffic control devices. Pavement markings, signage, those are other groups of traffic control devices. And traffic signals is just another type of traffic control device. And typically when we talk about intersection traffic control, there's either signalized or unsignalized. So this is where signals would fall into. As part of signal design, modernization, and operations, MDOT does have traffic safety notes and guidelines in addition to MUTCD that helps all the agencies, all the municipalities to be uniform in their traffic signal device design and operations. Then we'll talk about triggers, or what would make traffic signal design or construction happen. The largest group of this would be capital improvement project. There are 3 groups in the CIP that could potentially trigger this: street and bridges, active transportation, and other infrastructure projects. Another group of triggers would include development projects. These include private development projects like the Five Corners project. And that particular project will have some signal work involved for upgrading the intersection of Hoover and State. The Broadway Park West project that's ongoing in the news. There's a lot of talking about the pedestrian bridge. And that project actually also includes a brand new traffic signal on Broadway with pedestrian crossing on the Broadway. Then some of the public institution project, like the Con Pavilion by UM, that project includes a brand new traffic signal and a brand new intersection at Catherine and Zena Pitcher. Some public agency project, the city's own Wheeler Service Center. This is years ago. I think that project, the Wheeler Service Center project, has something to do with the traffic signal at Ellsworth and Shadowwood. If it's not a brand new signal, at least some turning movements are being controlled or prohibited because of the Wheeler Service Center. And then traffic signal could also be proposed as part of traffic safety concern and the mitigation measures in response to safety concern. An example of this would be the intersection of Huron and 7th. The side street approaches are very offset, and it's not very friendly especially to drivers who are not very familiar with the area. So the city proposed an MDOT complete study at the intersection, and then there were changes made to the intersection. Asset approaching the end of a service life would obviously be a trigger to renew the signal asset. There are other emergency repair projects. Some of the, I guess, previous over the years, I can remember 2 water main break projects, Plymouth Road and Green intersection. Years ago, there was a water main break, and that triggered some modifications to the traffic signal. It's not a modernization, but there are lane use changes, there are vehicle detection upgrades applied to the intersection to handle construction traffic. And those modifications stay there for on permanent fashion. The intersection of Jackson and Maple had similar result when there was the water main break on Maple. research projects. This is mainly with the University of Michigan research projects to support connected vehicle research. And as part of the research project, there have been partial upgrades to traffic signal controllers and some detection systems at city intersections. All right, then we'll talk about different types of traffic signal. We'll go through the same items on the next page, so I'll just keep going. There are pedestrian signal head. The city is making its effort to upgrade all pedestrian signal head to be the countdown type. And bicycle signal heads, the city of Ann Arbor had the first installation in the state of Michigan, and then the city is expanding bicycle signal installation at additional intersections. Vehicle signal heads or faces, those are very familiar to all the users here. And then there's the pedestrian hybrid beacon. So the city used to have one location with this type of signal. That was the intersection of Huron Street and 3rd and Chapin. I think it's around 2020 or 2021. This type of signal was taken out, and the signal equipment was upgraded to be a full traffic signal for the intersection. This type of signal, both the pedestrian hybrid beacon and the RFB, that's the next one, that are more typically used for mid-block crossings, meaning non-motorized users would cross a street in between two intersections. When these type of devices are used at an intersection, there might be potential to have some confusion to drivers on side street. Then the last type here is transit signal, which is, if I'm not mistaken, again, the first installation in the state to have exclusive transit signal at an intersection. So these are the vertical or diagonal bars to indicate transit vehicles can proceed through the intersection. And the top signal face has a horizontal white bar that signifies the transit vehicle will need to stop and yield the right of way. Briefly talk about the design steps for signal modernization. During the kickoff and scope verification, this is where stakeholders are gathered to provide their input. Then move into base plan development. These would start with the location of the devices. And a very common type of upgrade is to change the signal layout from diagonal span to box span. So with those two terms, diagonal span means for a typical intersection with 4 corners, diagonal span means there are only 2 upright poles in the 2 opposite corners of the intersection, string this only one wire across the diagonal of the box and on that diagonal span wire, all traffic signals are hang on that one piece of wire. It's convenient in terms of mounting the traffic signal, but in terms of providing the most intuitive observation to drivers or users of the signal, it's not the most ideal setup. So a very common type of upgrade is to change the diagonal span into a box span where at the intersection with 4 legs, there will be 1 span wire across each leg of the intersection to provide the perpendicular and most optimum observing distance to the approaching drivers. And part of the base plan will also identify right-of-way constraints for any upgrades as part of the design process. And then during the preliminary plan step, this is where all the utility companies will be involved to solve any utility conflict. Then the process will move into final plan and specification. This is where the constructability will be reviewed and the final cost estimate will be generated. Then after the omission and errors checking step, the last step is to prepare the final bid package and get ready for construction. All right. Then we'll talk about different considerations into designing traffic signals. The first group we'll talk about is multimodal traffic demand. Pedestrian, cyclist, vehicles, and how to separate the conflict. Those are the main topics. There are really a few intersections in the city where there are very high pedestrian demand. The city had a capital project a few years ago where that involved a large number of traffic count collection. And as part of that, 4 intersections, 3 of them along State Street, State and William, State and North U, and State and Liberty. Well, the first one is also along State, but just not in that segment. State and Packard, the 4 of them observed really high pedestrian volumes that are high enough to consider exclusive pedestrian phase. And exclusive ped phase was actually deployed at the 3 intersections from William to Liberty. It was in operations for a while. Then eventually there's still enough complaints as to users not being able to adapt to exclude ped phase that operations was taken out. But it was a pretty extended period of time and meaningful experiment of that deployment. And then accessible pedestrian signal, city is really trying very hard to push the deployment of accessible ped signal as far as much as feasible, meaning not all capital projects can or is capable of entertaining the full deployment of APS. We'll talk about what that means, in a later slide. But city is trying to move this as far ahead as possible by deploying even a portion or making an intersection ready to accommodate APS in an easier fashion in future projects. Then for cyclists, there are really three types of traffic signal control for cyclists. For some intersections, bicyclists would use vehicular signal head, the typical red, yellow, and green. And then for other intersections, cyclists would use pedestrian signals. A case in example would be the William cycle track. So at many of the intersections along the William cycle track, there are signage installed to request cyclists to follow pedestrian signal. Then there are intersections with specific bicycle signal. I think that is for this slide, and I see there
that Rachel has a question. Rachel?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Can you just say one more time which intersection it was where the exclusive pedestrian phase was deployed, and then maybe say just a few more words about what people were confused about and, why it was ultimately discontinued?
The 3 intersections were State and William, State and North University, and State and Liberty. So the confusion is primarily as to when pedestrians can start crossing. So the typical expectation from users is that when the when vehicles on the same approach, when vehicles start moving, it's expected pedestrians will also start moving. So with exclusive ped phase, that's not always the case. So I think that's what's really making users confused a little bit. It's not really a huge safety concern, but it is something that we don't really want users to cross against traffic signal indication either. So that was the main concern.
Thank you.
Pete?
Yeah, Pete.
Hi, Luke. Wasn't that like decades ago though? I mean, I remember that from my youth. Wasn't it like in the early 2000s that we tried that? And the
Yeah, I
reason I'm
think-
asking is it time maybe to try it again? Like maybe it didn't work 2 decades ago. Maybe it'll work now. I don't know.
It's not that long time ago. It was, if I remember correctly, maybe during or the second half of the pandemic. So
Yeah, it was when the state and Northview project.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I think it was tried in like 2000 or 2001 also is what I remember. So I guess we tried it again. Okay. Thank you.
all right. Thank you. Okay, I'll move on. Another consideration for signal design is signal facing. So shown here on the screen is Miller and 7th, and this one is the proposed design that will be deployed with the Miller project. And before the change, this intersection carried only 2 signal faces. And with the addition of bicycle signal, the operations became more complex, and there are more signal faces involved. And this is what staff will need to handle to get ready for the new deployment. And we'll also continue to talk about 2 other examples. I guess I was lucky in picking Packard and Division. Second time for everyone to see the intersection this evening here on the left. And I won't comment too much on that anymore. The one on the right is intersection of Maple and South Church. So what I want to say about this intersection is that roughly around 10 years ago, because of the skewness of the intersection, there was a new bus route being proposed. And the bus movement would go southbound on Maple, making a right-hand turn. That's a sharp turn onto South Church. So at that time, by checking the turning radius, turning template, it was quite challenging for bus to complete the turning movement at the time. So what happened was that the city staff and staff from the right brought 2 buses out here, and with police department. The intersection was blocked off to normal traffic. This is, of course, during the off-peak hours, and there was a field experiment conducted to check the bus turning radius or the envelope need to accommodate the turning movement. And the result is upgrades to the traffic signal for this particular movement, but also relocating the stop bar on the west leg. So where you can kind of see, it's a little faded here. This stop bar was offset from its original location by about 80 feet. So There's some markings change. There's an additional signage alerting drivers to stop at this location further away from the center of the intersection, and then signal upgrade. Another group of considerations is really the transit vehicles. As city is moving toward the reduction in vehicle miles traveled, transit is becoming another mode that's going to be heavily relied upon. At the intersection of State and William, actually the block of State Street from Southview to William, the first bus exclusive lane will be constructed, or it's already there, and the signal is already functioning at the intersection of State and William to provide this the transit signal display. We covered the intersection of Maple and South Church as to how to accommodate buses at the intersection. Another example would be Catherine and Glen. So there has been, this is another crash. I think it was that involved fatality at the intersection. So it's between a turning bus and a pedestrian at the intersection. So there has been traffic signal operations adjustment to separate the conflict between pedestrian movement and turning buses. Then the last subgroup of this consideration is transit signal priority. So there are a few ongoing projects under this topic for AATA Route 4. There's the ongoing transit signal priority project, and Route 4 connects Blake to Ypsilanti Transit Center. And phase 1 of this project covers the segment of Route 4 from Blake to US 23. And then phase 2 will cover the rest of the route. Is to provide a central server-based transit signal priority. Buses traveling along the routes, as buses approach each signalized intersection, there is a business logic to check if the bus is behind schedule. If the bus is behind schedule, it's going to request transit signal priority, and that signal will be routed from the transit server into the city's traffic signal server, and then the signal system is expected to take action to either provide an early green or extend the current green to the approach to allow the bus to pass through the intersection with less delay. Then there's also the University of Michigan project that's also targeted at transit signal priority as an application, but this one is taking place through a different route. This one is using connected vehicle devices installed at each location. So, and this one is really research based. So it's near the end of its research period, and the team is collecting performance data, and we'll see how it functions. And the corridor for this is Fuller Road from near Huron High School inbound to Maiden Lane.
Hey Luke, real quick, Route
Yes.
4, the AAA TA Route 4, is that Washtenaw, or where is that route?
Primarily is Washtenaw, then coming to downtown and become Huron, then come down to Fifth Ave and Fourth Ave.
So, but being an MDOT road, we're able to implement TSP with the signals?
MDOT is okay with that, with some special, I guess, approval because the software would require a version of the signal controller firmware, which is not currently approved statewide. So the state department did give the approval for the city to test the software and deploy TSP.
It's an encouraging precedent. All right, thank you.
Then the last type of design consideration here in this presentation is emergency vehicle and rail preemption. So emergency vehicle preemption right now is primarily centered around two fire stations. Station 1 used to involve 3 intersections, 5th and N Street, 5th and Huron, and then 4th and Huron. Recently, city staff did expand the scope of this preemption to include additional intersections further southbound on 5th Ave to include 5th and Washington and 5th and Liberty to clear the queue and allow the fire engines to respond faster. Fire Station 4, which is under construction right now, but there has been preemption there, and there will continue to be preemption at that intersection at Huron Parkway and Platt. Railroad preemption of the 4 intersections, State Street and Stimson, Main Street and Madison, Liberty and First, and Barton and Plymouth Road. So some of these intersections, like State and Stimson, the railroad tracks go through the middle of the intersection. Then for the next 2, Main Street and near Liberty and First, it crosses like 2 legs of the intersection. So it does have quite some impact to signal operations, and there are some unique settings in there to handle the signal and provide the right of way to the approaching train. And then as to design impacts, so this is just an example. No need to read into the small wordings here. This is kind of a screenshot from the signal design sheet. This is for Huron-Jackson split near Dexter and Ravenna. So this is a project. The main goal of the project was to add a pedestrian crosswalk crossing the east leg of the intersection. That crosswalk did not exist before, and Ravenna was not signalized. So as part of adding the crosswalk, the Ravenna approach, that's the northbound approach, and the north leg is departing the intersection only. There are additional signals installed there. Then there was also detection upgrades, and this project was voiced by the city, and city worked with MDOT with the design and construction. So there's some discussion about ADA compliance here, not just this one intersection, but overall. Traditionally, an intersection could be ADA compliant when there was not accessible pedestrian signal. So this is another items to pay attention in the process of installing APS. The signal equipment itself is relatively affordable for adding APS. However, to stay with to be ADA compliant with APS, there needs to be a minimum separation between 2 accessible devices, as they would convey different messages verbally. And that separation would often trigger the construction or relocation of curb ramps and crosswalks. So, and that turns out to be a more or pricier item for the construction. So, yeah, it's just an impact that as the process of pushing out APS, this is a cost that cannot be overlooked and will need to be considered. Right-of-way impact, this could surface during the modernization from diagonal span to box span, as the project would be adding additional signal poles. Then placement of signal poles and cabinet, and also underground utilities. So, right. Then we'll talk about the last segment of this presentation that talks about data communication and operations. A very critical part of the infrastructure that's not very visible to the users is fiber optic cables. The city of Ann Arbor does have 100% fiber connection to all its traffic signals, which allowed for a lot of the projects to be feasible, including the adaptive signal control, includes the research project by the university, because that involves transmitting a lot of data back and forth. And for real-time operations, fiber optic cables also made that possible to make it changes to signal timings, to make observation, making connection to field cameras easier. And that certainly shows up in the special event operations by city staff. On the right side here, this is actually the intersection of Main Stadium. You don't see the intersection because it's flooded with pedestrians during football games. And the city's transportation staff does provide full event operations during all University of Michigan home games, and lately the addition of concert events as well. Then the city's signal shop also maintains timing permit, which documents the signal timings in the controller. In the case of a knockout, city staff can restore the intersection operations with the information recorded on timing permit. And also bench testing, which is critical before any new equipment is installed on the street. It's fully tested on the bench in the shop and burned in to make sure it can function properly and reliably. Then city also provides the preventive maintenance activities to signal equipment, and then certifies the malfunction management unit, which oversees the operations of each signal. In the case there is any conflict, this MMU will trigger the intersection to go into red flash to stay safe. And then here are like two examples of special event operations. On the left is showing Ann Arbor Saline Road during the post-game operations. This is again maybe the last one remaining in the state where all lanes on Ann Arbor Saline is converted to one-way operations to allow faster travel for visitors to go home. And the picture on the right side is showing the same, similarly it's post-game, but this is on Main Street near Packard and William area, where users are trying to go home by going through downtown. And the city is also conducting a near miss analytics project. This one is using the existing GridSmart detection cameras at intersections, not all intersections, but roughly around 50 or 60 intersections with the equipment. Make use of the existing resource and in an attempt to expand safety database to include near-miss events to explore mitigation measures before crashes would happen. All right, this is last slide with questions and answers. If there's any questions, we'll dig as deep as we can, as the picture on the right. And if you ask what's showing on the left side, it's about the ridiculous amount of handholds on here. And this is not in the city. It's just one of the hazard. I was traveling on vacation, I saw this, and I would not name where this is at.
All right, thank you very much, Luke. What kind of questions are there? Pete?
So when we're modernizing our signals, like what are we doing to capture the requirements, like not having or like eliminating the flashing yellow arrow conflicts with pedestrians? How are we capturing those in our new designs? Like, is there a standard that we have that says that we don't do that anymore? Or that says that we always do use leading pedestrian interval? Or like, how do we know we've got all the things that we want?
Luke, I can take this one if you don't mind. Yeah. We have all of the city signals are already there's 3 that don't have the APS to stop the flashing yellow when a pedestrian is crossing the street. So we are working on the last 3 intersections to upgrade the city signals. We're also collaborating with U of M to nudge them to do the same sort of improvements to their signal infrastructure as they are upgrading their signals. We've also, all of the city signals have LPI on them, and I believe all of the MDOT ones do as well, but I could be wrong on that. Luke, you might be able to answer that one.
A couple MDOT intersections have LPI, not all of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've been working with them on that as well.
I recently visited Maine and Huron, where a pedestrian was seriously injured in a right turn crash, and there is no LPI at the intersection of those 2 MDOT roads. So
right.
I can confirm.
Yeah.
My question was about, as we upgrade and make new signals, how are we capturing all of the things that we like about the signals we already have? How do we know that list of things that we are trying to change our signals to have are going to be carried over into these new ones?
Yeah, if I may just, yeah, for new intersections or new signals or new flashing yellow arrows, the flashing yellow arrow cancellation, they are there if I'm correct. So, I don't think the city would install flashing yellow arrow and then do the cancellation later. It's going to happen from.
I guess I just want to make sure that we don't, as our list of wants grows, that we don't lose track of them, that they're documented somewhere, and that we have a list that we can hand off to our supplier and say, make sure you do all this stuff.
We do, Pete. That is definitely a city practice, and it's been incorporated for every CIP project, every road resurfacing. We look at what we can do. So whenever we can incorporate it on a project, we are including that. It's fully integrated throughout the engineering and transportation team.
That's good to hear. I guess I'd also like to observe about the difference between the diagonal and the box set up for signals. One of the things that I like about the diagonal configuration for signals is that I can only see the signals that are pointed at me. Whereas at an intersection, like especially when it's not a 90-degree intersection, I'm thinking of Packard and Hill, I can see lots of signals all at one time that are all pointed in slightly different directions because of the way the mast arms are configured. So I guess I would just like to make sure that as we are placing these new signals, that we have we have a standard about how many of them we can see at one time and what we're doing to prevent sending mixed signals, as it were. So anyways, thank you. Thanks for those answers, Melissa and Luke.
Eric?
I had a question kind of related to that last point Pete was making, where we were talking about diagonal versus box intersections. Is there a rule when we have box intersections, like where the signal is placed? Because I noticed that in this city, and maybe it's just a US phenomenon, that the signals are always placed as far from the driver's stopping point as possible. And I've noticed in other countries or in other cities that the signals, when you get a red signal, it's close to where you're stopping. So you kind of are forced to stop further back from the intersection. Where we place the intersection signals is so far away that it's easy to creep into the intersection for drivers. It's easy to roll into the crosswalk for a driver and still see fully the traffic signal because it's placed so far away from where you're supposed to stop.
Yeah, there are a couple considerations here. The most fundamental rule is there's a 40-foot minimum separation because of the height, and in order to keep the signal visible in the cone of vision, there's the 40-foot minimum and then a 40-degree cone of vision. So 20 degrees on either side of the center line. So 40 foot is the minimum. Then as to the maximum, is somewhere in about 120 or 180, depends on the size or the diameter of the lens. So, and in between, box span is found to associate with better driver compliance in terms of stopping. As to whether they creep into the intersection, there could be other considerations like a supplemental signal phase at the near side of the intersection for through movement. And for left turning movement, it could be a supplemental signal pole or mounted on the upright at the opposite corner, so that a left turn driver can better observe the signal indication at the same time to check on if there's any non-motorized users using the facility.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, well, I want to thank you again, Luke, for oh, Pete, one more.
I do have one last question about the boxes that we show here and if whether or not we have any standards around where they get placed. I have observed some of them that sort of get in the way of like making eye contact with drivers at crosswalks. And so I'm thinking of Plymouth and Traverwood is one example. That's a mid-block crossing, but the control boxes there are inhibiting, eye contact. So if we don't have a standard on that, I guess I would like to recommend that we create one.
Oh, I see. It's the location of the signal cabinet, whether that stays in the side triangle of the intersection. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, Luke, for coming by. It's always good to see you. Hopefully we see you again sometime soon. But thanks a lot for this. It's provided a lot of good background. I think answered some questions that people have been having for a while now. So thanks again.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Next up, last information topic for tonight is our annual safety update. Cynthia?
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And just to let everyone know, I'm going to keep my camera off. I've had a bit of internet instability this week, and sure that we're able to hear me and see the slides. Is my presentation showing?
Looks good.
Great, thank you. Okay. So good evening, commissioners and members of the community. Tonight, we find ourselves at an important crossroads in Ann Arbor's work toward zero deaths. When City Council adopted Ann Arbor Moving Together Towards Vision Zero as our comprehensive transportation plan, it committed to a bold goal, eliminating all fatalities and serious injury crashes on our roads by the end of 2025. That goal reflected a belief that with the right plan and resources, we could build a transportation system where no one loses their life. Unfortunately, and painfully, our community has not met that goal. This reality requires us to engage in a honest, calm, and fact-based conversation, one that asks us all to bring humility, patience, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Because the loss of even one life on our roads is unacceptable, and the anger and grief that accompany these tragedies are felt by everyone here. Our task is to examine the factors behind life-threatening injuries and fatalities, and to be clear-eyed about what we can and cannot achieve through how we physically alter and build our streets, bike lanes, and sidewalks. For more than 2 decades, city staff have implemented proven safety countermeasures, such as road diets, enhanced crosswalks, roundabouts, lane reductions, lower speed limits, and an expanded network of protected and unprotected bike lanes. These steps have produced measurable improvements. And yes, there is more that we can do, and more we intend to do. But in a world that is increasingly drawn to simple narratives, we must resist the temptation to believe that any single strategy, engineering, enforcement, or culture can solve this problem alone. Let's begin. We're going to start, sorry, my slide didn't forward. We're going to start by defining Vision Zero. As listed on the slide and as defined in Ann Arbor Moving Together, Vision Zero recognizes that safe mobility is a basic right, traffic crashes are preventable, humans make mistakes, and safety is a shared responsibility. Everyone has the right to walk, bike, take public transit, and drive on streets that are safe for everyone, regardless of why they're traveling or where they live. By changing how we design, use, and view our streets, we can make them safer for everyone. Our streets and policies should be designed so that when people make inevitable mistakes, they don't result in injury or death. And Vision Zero requires action on many levels. It requires a diverse partnership of community members, city staff, and stakeholders to carry out these actions and hold each other accountable. Therefore, how do we get to zero? Achieving Vision Zero is a community-wide commitment let's review how the community gets to zero. Ann Arbor Moving Together developed short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategies for achieving Vision Zero, which is zero deaths. These strategies are focused on the 6 E's. Our slide lists the 6 E's: engineering, education, encouragement, enforcement, equity, and evaluation. After the adoption of our plan, the Federal Highway Administration developed the Safe Systems approach as the national strategy for achieving zero transportation deaths. This approach, which is applied by staff, also emphasizes the need for community-wide acceptance of the zero deaths goal. Our slide shows an image of the Safe Systems approach that lists the strategies and objectives. The strategies are listed around the outside of the circle, and they are: death and serious injuries are unacceptable. Humans make mistakes. Humans are vulnerable. Responsibility is shared. Safety is proactive. And redundancy is crucial. And the objectives listed in the pie wedges are safer people, safer roads, safer vehicles, safer speeds, and post-crash care enhancements. These community-wide commitments are important because no single approach can solve this very complex problem. Now that everyone has a shared understanding of Vision Zero and the framework for how we get to Vision Zero, how is Ann Arbor performing? Formally review crash data each year as an identified strategy in moving together. Evaluating the changes in crash performance helps to inform what impacts investments in engineering, education, encouragement, and enforcement have. The next few slides will review the information already available on the city's website through our crash reporting page. These evaluations include the available certified data through the end of 2024. It's important for these yearly crash reviews to be rooted in the certified data set in order to capture all crashes that occur on our network. Our police department provides the vast majority of crash response within city limits, but other agencies support them as well. These agencies include the Washtenaw County Sheriff, Pittsfield Township, and the Michigan State Police. Any crashes that those folks are responding to will not be in our local data set, which is why we hold off for the certified data set. Now that we know where the data comes from, let's understand a little bit about crash severity. Crash severity is reported by the police officers responding to a crash. This information, along with other vital crash details, are documented in the Michigan UD10 crash report. This slide lists the categories of injury, as well as a definition for each of these categories. These definitions are paraphrased from the UD10 manual, which is available online. So our first category is fatal injury, also known as a K-level crash. Any injury that results in death within 30 days after the crash, which is important to note because the death could occur after the crash and still be considered a fatality. The next level is suspected serious injury, or A-level crashes. These are severe lacerations with significant blood loss, broken or distorted extremities, crush injuries, suspected skull or chest injury, significant burns, unconsciousness leaving the scene, or paralysis. Our next category is suspected minor injury, or a B-level crash. And those are any injuries that is evident at the scene other than a fatal or suspected serious injury. Our lowest level of injury is a possible injury, also known as a level C injury. And those are any injury reported or claimed, which is not any of the above injuries, so fatal, suspected serious injury, or suspected minor injury. And then we have our property damage only crashes, which involve no injuries. So now that we've reviewed these crash severity definitions and everyone has a shared understanding, let's go on to the crash data. This slide shows a graph of crashes reported, all crashes reported for 2011 through 2024. This graph is taken directly from the city's website, and you can replicate the data shown on this slide as well as the next few slides through your own exploring of that website. The graph displays all severity crashes by year and provides the rolling 5-year average. Rolling 5-year average is an important indicator used to identify trends in crashes and changes in trends. The data indicate that overall crash occurrences were increasing prior to the pandemic. Crashes significantly dropped during the pandemic, which was mostly due to the decreased amount of travel. The following years have shown an increase, which may represent a return to mean. However, the current performance may indicate that our new mean will be lower than in pre-pandemic years. The slide now shows the year with the highest 5-year average, which was 2017, with 3,170 reported crashes. The slide also shows the 5-year average for 2024, which is 2,070 reported crashes. Our next slide shows a graph of all injury crashes reported for 2011 through 2024. So the property damage only crashes have been removed. This graph is also taken directly from the city's website and displays all injuries crashes by year and provides the rolling 5-year average. The data indicate that the overall injury crash occurrences were fairly stable prior to the pandemic. Injury crashes also decreased during the pandemic, but not as significantly as property damage only crashes. And the following years have shown a similar increase, which may represent a return to mean. However, as before, the current performance also indicates the new mean may be lower than in pre-pandemic years. So the slide now shows the year with the highest 5-year average, which was 2017, with 467.2 reported crashes. And the slide is now showing the 5-year average for 2024, which is 318.2 reported crashes. Our next slide shows a graph of injury crashes for injury crashes above a possible injury level. So we've removed the property damage only, and we've removed the sea level crashes. As before, this graph is taken directly from the city's website and provides crash levels by year as well as the rolling 5-year average. The data indicate that the overall injury crash occurrences are less stable than at other injury levels. So there's a little bit more variability year to year. And the slide now shows the year with the highest 5-year average, which was 2019, with 20.2 reported crashes. And the slide also shows the 5-year average for 2024, which is 160.8 reported crashes. Our next slide shows a graph of all suspected serious injury and fatal crashes reported for 2011 through 2024. As before, this graph is taken from the city's website and displays crashes reported annually as well as the 5-year rolling average. The data include that the number of crashes occurring annually are not stable before, during, or after the pandemic. There is a good bit of variability. However, the annual fluctuations in these crashes result in a rolling 5-year average that consistently remains between 22 and 27.4 crashes per year. So there's a couple years where the high and the low of our rolling 5-year average, and then the rolling 5-year average for 2024 was 24.6. As we have previously discussed at commission meetings, and as I covered earlier in this presentation, reported A-level injuries have a large range of possible injuries. They can range from a broken wrist to life-threatening, life-altering injuries. In order to focus more on severe crashes, as we did last year, we're going to look at the life-threatening crashes. So we turn away from the certified data set for this and look to the crash investigation work that the Ann Arbor Police Department does along with their partner agencies. This slide shows a chart documenting the annual number of incidents considered life-threatening by the Ann Arbor Police Department and the outcomes of those crashes. These incidents may include non-vehicle crash occurrences. Examples include interactions between pedestrians and trains, or construction zone vehicle and equipment incidents. The data show that these most severe crash incidents historically have had a stable and stubborn occurrence level. The rolling 5-year average ranged between 6 and 6.4 crashes annually through 2023. The number of life-threatening incidents AAPD has responded to annually has been increasing since 2023, with increases in 2024 and even higher levels reported so far this year. Unfortunately, these trends are consistent with the national safety conversation about why more people are dying and being seriously injured on our streets. The answer to the question is complex and involves many factors, including more driving, which is referred to as the post-pandemic rebound, larger and heavier vehicles, and more risky or aggressive behavior. The national conversation is consistent with the dangerous behaviors we continue to see in our own community. Let's consider those behaviors. The slide lists the 5 dangerous behaviors identified in A2 Moving Together that most significantly contribute to life-threatening crashes. They are listed in descending order of prevalence: failure to yield, impaired driving, reckless, careless driving, speeding, and disregarded traffic signs or signals. These behaviors continue to be significant contributors to the life-threatening crashes our community experiences, which is significant because the difficult truth is that engineering can only influence people who are behaving within the bounds of normal expectations. It cannot stop a person from choosing to drive drunk or high. It cannot keep someone from traveling over 80 miles per hour on a street with a design speed of 35 miles per hour. It cannot force someone from blowing through an intersection with all the appropriate signs, markings, and signals in place. When we look closely at the most severe crashes, the ones that leave families forever changed, we find that human behavior is often a determining factor. This is not about blame. This is about reality established by the data. I know that some of you will respond to these statements by thinking that's not always true. We can provide better infrastructure, and I completely agree with you. Staff know and understand that infrastructure impacts outcomes, and we are continually working to improve infrastructure. We frequently make design changes in response to crashes where an infrastructure change can be identified to address the crash. We also pursue ways to work with neighboring agencies to improve conditions that span across jurisdiction lines. But no amount of engineering can overcome extreme, reckless, or impaired behavior. An uncomfortable truth is that no matter how much we pay attention, we are human and we make mistakes. Those mistakes cannot be eliminated. But if we build our environment better and we choose to behave in a way that puts safety over speed and convenience, humans can correct for those mistakes. So where does our community go from here? The path forward toward true safety, therefore, requires more than infrastructure. It requires a cultural shift throughout our community and across our state toward valuing every life on the road, every time we travel. It requires a collective expectation that driving sober, staying attentive, and following the rules of the road are not optional, but essential. Tonight, as we shared the latest data, we do so not to assign blame, but to invite partnership, to acknowledge progress while confronting hard realities, and to remind ourselves that achieving Vision Zero demands all of us, engineers, policymakers, residents, travelers, working together. Which leads me to our ask of the Transportation Commission. We need your support to continue moving the community toward our goal of eliminating deaths and life-threatening injuries on our streets. Staff already implement an overwhelming majority of near and medium-term solutions proposed by Ann Arbor Moving Together toward Vision Zero. There are two solutions we need your assistance with. The first, now listed on the slide, is a Policy and Advocacy Act ask for automated enforcement. Ann Arbor Moving Together lists automated enforcement as a tool to address 3 of the 5 dangerous behaviors: speeding, failure to yield, and disregard traffic control. Our enforcement partners are doing a great job, but they cannot be everywhere on the system. And these tools have been proven effective when used in a data-driven manner. Staff need advocacy at the state level to permit the use of these tools. The second, now listed on the slide, is a budget request to fund the near-term strategy of expanding the A2B Safe program. This strategy, which can be found on page 129 of the plan, should be funded and implemented, even if in its final form, it is not that of the A2B Safe program. Staff need advocacy with City Council to fund a robust education and encouragement program. Thank you for being part of this conversation and for your commitment to creating safer streets for everyone in Ann Arbor. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Any questions for Cynthia? Pete.
Yeah, I have a couple of asks. Thanks for the presentation, Cynthia. You mentioned that we've already completed many of the near and short-term actions recommended in the Ann Arbor Moving Together plan. And that's good to hear. And I guess I would like to ask for a future agenda topic where we look at those short-term and medium-term actions and just do a review of which ones we think we have completed. So I guess I would also like to comment that I'm disappointed with the focus in this presentation on driver accountability and driver responsibility. And I feel very strongly that drivers need to be responsible for their actions. However, we have been trying unsuccessfully for a very long time to change driver behaviors through campaigns and messaging. And what we need to do is change this is my opinion, we need to change our facilities to encourage people to interact in them the way that we want them to. We need to set lower design speeds, and then we need to design the facilities so that people operate in them at lower speeds. And what that will do is it will make it so that people who are following the law and are not drunk and are not impaired, that they drive at lower speeds. But it will also make it so that it's very difficult to operate a vehicle when you're drunk. We only have so many levers to pull, and engineering is one of them. We need to do the engineering in a way that creates a system that makes people drive slower and drive safer. We're not going to get there by asking them nicely and by giving them messaging campaigns. The last thing that I'd like to observe, and I've made this observation before, is that we have not committed as a body, city council, our leadership has not committed to reducing crashes. We saw a lot about how the overall crash rate is going down. What they did commit to is reducing serious injuries and fatalities. And we saw in this presentation how those are not going down. And we also saw how our focus, or CIT staff's focus, seems to be somehow on a special category of serious injury crashes, which is serious injury crashes that necessitate calling out the accident reconstruction team. As far as I know, City Council did not commit to reducing crashes that require the special accident reconstruction team to come out. They committed to reducing and eliminating serious injury crashes and fatality crashes. And if there's some other definition for what a serious injury crash is, other than what's in the UD10, I'd like to hear it. Because the way I interpret our Vision Zero goal that we have made time and time again is that we are going to eliminate serious injury crashes and fatality crashes. Not just these very bad serious injury crashes. And the last thing I'd like to point out is that I do not want to minimize the seriousness of a broken wrist or a broken leg. If I were to break a leg right now, or an ankle, I would probably never play soccer again in my entire life. That's probably what would happen. I would likely, it would be in question if I could ride my bike again. If I lost those two things in my life, it would be very, very bad. I do not want to minimize the seriousness of serious crashes. We have these categories for a reason, and we have committed to eliminating them, and that needs to be our goal henceforth. That is the end of my comment. Thank you.
Pete, Pete, if I just may, we are still very committed to those goals. And I would also like to say we are still very committed to the engineering. What Cynthia was trying to emphasize is that engineering alone isn't going to get us there, and having the companion pieces of enforcement and education to try to help change driver behavior is what we're after. But engineering is still very much the focus.
I am also here for them. I'm also here for those two things. Yes, I agree. We need them. And I want it to be clear, though, that what I want to see more of is engineering that slows people down. And
we are committed to that. Speed management is our goal.
Is good to hear. Thank you.
Rachel.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cynthia, for this presentation. I am wondering, and I don't mean to ask this to put more work on your plate, but I think being able to communicate about the specific levers that that staff are requesting, and in particular, the sort of like data and evidence informed reasons for them, I think, you know, is really important for the commission to be able to do. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we, and maybe it's already in the plan, you know, I don't have it memorized. But if there's a way that we could maybe get some easy access to the evidence base that we're drawing upon, you know, not just the city specific data, but also the evidence base that we're drawing upon when we discuss, you know, what are the most dangerous elements that we're trying to reduce, and also and specifically, you know, what hasn't yet had as much of a robust effort behind it in the city, as we support you in you know, bringing those pieces, you know, more fully into the work.
Yeah, those dangerous behaviors that we're citing, those are actually noted on the UD10 report. And if you are looking at the crash reporting website, if you're looking at the data set, there's a tab, I think it's called violations. I don't have it open for a demonstration, but I could do that. It has all of this data in there. And so you can go to that tab and you can look at all of that by severity and assortment of severity that you want to review that at. And that is where we're pulling that data from. So those 5 behaviors, those are the behaviors that were cited in the plan because they were the most prevalent in our serious injury and fatal crashes at the time for that period of data that was being looked at. And that has continued to remain consistent. You know, we reported on crashes last year and it was still those 5, you know, and we're reporting on it again and it's still that same subset, but that's where we're getting the data from. It's from the UD10 report.
Okay, that's really helpful. I just want to make sure I understand, because I definitely know that when we get the reports out in the commission meetings, you know, we hear about those factors, but I think what I hear you saying is that you can get that in a quantitative way across all of the reports on the website.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Dharma.
Thanks, and thanks for the presentation. I have a few just thoughts as I'm digesting this. First, I would caution us against, I know that the 5-year rolling average is useful and I understand why it's useful. However, it seems considerably less useful for the gap that for the 5-year period that we're looking at right now, just because we know we have a very anomalous year in that data set. So it seems to me like it would add quite a bit of noise. I'm also just thinking about, it would be useful to be able to contextualize our numbers compared to what we know is a state and nationwide trend upward. Not universally. There are some communities that have gone down, and it would be interesting to look at what have they done that we haven't done, perhaps. But I would like to know, because if you look at our numbers, it looks like we have done a lot of work, and yet the numbers are trending in the wrong direction. That would be my impression if you throw 2020 out. But are we not increasing as much as the rest of the state or the rest of the country? That would be somewhat useful to know. I mean, we still need to take action, but it would be useful to know. And then I guess the other thing that I'm thinking is, speaking as the council member on this body, I'm very supportive of providing resources that we need to solve this. And I want to put our limited resources to where it stands to have the most impact. One thing that I know is that a lot of these crashes are failure to yield. And I know that a couple of the ones that have happened over the last year, so they're probably not in your data set, but have happened at the enhanced crossings with flashing signals during daylight. I mean, so what do we need to do to get people to follow those laws besides educating them? Targeted enforcement, does it need to be periodic because we have such a transient student population? How can we get people to, yield? So I don't know. Those are just some amorphous thoughts as I take this in. Thank you.
Well, I think, Councilmember Ackman, those, you say they're amorphous thoughts, but those are very similar to the thoughts that we have in the conversations that we have as staff. When we're looking at, those most severe crashes, those crashes that we are reporting out monthly, that we are reviewing in our crash review team, those are the really stubborn, sticky crashes. We had pretty stable performance in that space for a lot of years, where the rest of the state, the rest of the country was experiencing increases, and we were not. We were staying stable. And that was, that in itself was a success. But as we are continuing to implement the engineering, I think one of the things that's really interesting to look at is that, as the less severe injuries are coming down, that says something, and that says something about the engineering. And it also says something about the fact that these life-threatening crashes and severe injury crashes that are not life-threatening, they're not following that trend that the other crashes are. And so that's where we start looking into them deeper and saying, what are the factors that are going into those? So that's why we're asking for support for these other work areas that help to support the engineering. And, Suzanne and I were actually having a conversation today about, if this robust education and encouragement campaign were to get funded, what are the partnerships that would need with that? What are the partnerships that would need specifically towards yielding at crosswalks, the uncontrolled crosswalks? Is, can we partner that with an, repeating of the enforcement campaign that we did previously that was very successful? We know that model worked. Where do we find grant money, and how do we make that happen as well? How do we extend our dollars to be able to work towards all of those goals?
Yeah, and if I could add one more thing that came to mind was that, I agree as we've been engaged in capital improvement projects, it's very clear that these things are being built in. I think Pauline is a great recent example. Driving down that road is a completely different experience than it was before. And I feel that when I'm in a car, I'm forced to slow down at every crosswalk, which is great. But we know that I think we always knew when we adopted the transportation plan, like the budget to do all the things is a lot. And we're building on a top of a built infrastructure. It takes time. So I would just, ask if there's things that we could speed up, not in terms of like the full reconstruction of a Pauline, but different, more responsive, more expansive, quick builds project is something that comes to mind. I mean, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is even though you guys are doing the things, I wouldn't say like, well, we've done the things, and so there's this gap, and it means like even though we're doing the things, it's not working. Like, we really haven't done the things everywhere because we haven't touched every road and we haven't, engaged in that. So I guess that's my other thought.
All right, Kate?
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. I had thought when Rachel asked about data that what she was asking, which I would find helpful, is data to suggest that the two interventions that you're requesting support for have like evidence-based support for those making a difference. And I could believe that that might exist with respect to the automatic speed enforcement and the ticketing. And I don't know which way the data goes, but I'm guessing there is data. And I'm guessing that if it showed that that reduces speed, that that's something that we could get behind. I would guess that that data doesn't exist for education campaigns. And personally, and I think this goes back to what Peter says, like, I think that that's sort of beyond the scope of our influence. I mean, substance abuse disorders are an incredible challenge. And I don't think that this group of people is going to change drunk driving with any sort of educational campaign. But to Peter's point, I do think that where we could impact it is putting in one speed bump that slows that driver down. So if there was data to support either of those interventions, I would be more likely to be supportive. But just based on kind of knowledge and anecdotes, I think I would lean towards potentially the first if we could see that data, and I can't imagine the second is going to resonate, at least with me personally, for the reasons I think Peter articulated better than I could.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of studies about automated enforcement, and we can definitely provide you all with a list of those. When it comes to the second, I will point the body back to the changing driver behavior study that we conducted with Western Michigan University. And the important things about education and encouragement is that it has to be partnered with something else. When it's partnered with those geometric or built condition changes, and it's partnered with items such as targeted enforcement, that's where it becomes effective. And that's really how we would anticipate working with our communications, working with Ann Arbor Police Department as well, to find a way to make those dollars complement the other work that we're doing, so that we can replicate the results that we were able to accomplish in that study.
All right, yeah, I certainly see some future agenda topics here, so yeah, this won't be the last time we discuss this, I'm sure. So yeah, thank you very much, Cynthia, for the annual report. and for bringing all the information to us and all of your thoughts and proposals for the future. Like I said, I think we have some things to talk about in the future. So thank you. All right. Let's move on then. Staff report and updates. The project updates are attached to the agenda. I'll encourage everyone to please look through those. Are there any specific questions, or I don't know if there's any highlights that you quickly want to go over, Cynthia, but you know, there's a lot of information in that PDF file that's attached to the agenda.
In the sake of time, I will be very brief and just let you know that there are a couple of projects that are not going to be finishing up this fall and will be overwintering and finishing in the spring, particularly State Street and Miller. Those will be open to traffic and fully functional. They will have temporary pavement markings, so all of the permanent markings, and in the case of State Street, definitely, I think all of the delineators will be installed in the spring. There are other updates, but I think those are maybe the big ones that the commission will be most interested in.
Great, thank you. And liaison reports, if there are any commissioners who serve on another board or commission that would like to share a report, now is the time. Pete? Pete, I think we lost your audio and video.
All right, sorry about that.
Yep.
Going back to our projects update. Last year we had a budget amendment that set aside $500,000 for quick build safety improvements on a major street, and I guess I would like to know when that project is going to be reflected in our projects update, and when should we expect that to come to the Transportation Commission for a checkpoint?
December 17th.
Okay, all right, excellent. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Right, any liaison reports? Dharma.
I wanted to let people know about a city council item. We're making changes to the vegetation ordinance, aka Chapter 40. And we had a first reading. We were due to have a second reading. It got kicked back to first reading because we made some changes based on feedback from transportation staff. So basically, the origins of this were to be more permissive with respect to the height of what people have on their private property. And this doesn't deal with the lawn extension at all, so that people could have pollinator gardens and not get ticketed, basically. But we also, of course, want to make sure that site triangles are clear, so that people who are walking or scooting or in a wheelchair can be seen by cars that are traveling. So we've made some changes to it based on that specifies that within the site triangle, the plants can't be higher than 30 inches. I expect, though it isn't part of this, that I'll also, after assuming this passes, we'll take a look at our parking ordinance, because right now we're saying that the site triangle is 40 by 40, 40 foot from curb down one side and 40 feet down the other side. But as probably many people on this call know, parking is usually 20 feet from the corner. This is only on corners. So I'll probably be looking at that to make sure it's consistent, because if plants are a danger to visibility, then I'm guessing parked cars are too. That's it.
Thank you. And that might be a agenda topic. Maybe have somebody, either yourself, somebody from the city, explain the new site triangle rules and everything once it's all sorted, or before. Any other liaison reports? All right, seeing none.
Hello,
Larry,
hold on.
Larry has his hand up.
Hey, Larry.
Yeah, y'all always miss me when I put my hand up. But No, we just, our Commission on Disability Issues, we just had someone from DDA, a couple of people from DDA come in and explain the 4th Avenue project. And they're going to build a crosswalk, and I think that's on 5th to cross over by the library, but I can't swear to it because obviously I don't see those things. But they want to build a crosswalk in there, and we, our commission very strongly suggested that there be a consideration for APS down at that corner, or down at that particular intersection. And that's all I really had to say that comes to the Transportation Commission.
Great, thank you. All right, call for agenda items as always. If you have any ideas, yes, Pete.
I've got 2 in mind. One of them is, let's see. One of them is signals that change to flashing lights at night. This was brought to me by someone in the community who raised this as a particular difficulty for people with disabilities. And I guess I would like to understand more about our strategy of changing traffic signals to flashing yellow and flashing red at night, and why we do it, and what can we do to improve accessibility there. Does that?
Sure. We'll
okay.
add it to the list. Yeah. We'll add it.
And then I think we are overdue for a update on the trunk line transfer. And
I can give you an update on that right now if you'd like.
That would be fantastic.
We just spoke this week with the consultant to do an engineering analysis so that we could better understand what the pavement quality is, to go back to negotiate with MDOT with real numbers. We're looking specifically at the east-west trunk line. That's the Jackson-Huron-Washtenaw corridor, because there's a number of projects on North Main that are coming in the next few years. So MDOT's doing a project on there that we're going to be involved in to try to do some things there anyway. So we're really focused on the east-west trunk line, and but we wanted to have more data to be able to have a real conversation about what it's going to cost to fix the road before we can take it over with MDOT. So we're kicking that off and in the next month or so, I believe, and should have some better information on that within like 6 months or so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and as always, please, email any of us with other ideas as they come up for agenda topics. All right.
Larry's hand's up again.
Okay, I don't know why I'm not seeing that. Okay, hey Larry. Hey Larry. Oh, you're muted. It's possible. Was his hand up from previously from his liaison report, or you think?
I'm not sure. Up there.
Yeah. I forgot I unmuted. Yeah, hand's still up. Let me see if I can get it down here. Sometimes my phone back, but there it goes.
All right. All set then. Okay. Thanks, Larry. All right. Let's see what else. Nothing else. All right. So the next meeting will be held on, let's see, Wednesday, December 17th, as Melissa mentioned, 2025 at 7 p.m. That will also be a virtual meeting. If there are no objections, we'll adjourn our November 19th meeting. Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.